This is a 4-cylinder turbo hybrid engine. Now, on paper, that's a pretty common engine these days. A lot of vehicles use that kind of powertrain. But what might surprise you about this particular 4-cylinder hybrid turbo is the power it makes and the engine bay in which it sits. Yes, indeed. I'm Dan the Wheelman, and this is the Mercedes-AMG GLC 63S E-Performance 4MATIC, or some mix thereof. All you have to know is in the engine bay of this small little compact crossover is a hybrid powertrain, as we just talked about, but one that packs over 1,000 Newton meters of torque. Well, that's pretty good. Now, we'll talk about Newton meters versus pound-feet later on, but never mind that for now. It still sounds pretty good. Even on a gray, rainy day like this one, that's gonna put a smile on your face, as will the looks. I really like the styling of this. The wheels are great, 21-inch wheels, black with the chrome lip, with the red brake calipers there, and the cross-drilled massive rotors as well, which looks good even when wrapped in chunky winter rubber. That is a serious wheel and tire package. I've got the black package on here that gives me black wing mirror caps, black roof rails, frames around the door, and on the rear valance as well. But my favorite aspect of that package are these black grille uprights here. Now, in the middle of this grille, you've got the big 3-pointed star logo, but on the hood, oh no, that's an Falterbach AMG logo. We no longer put the 3-pointed star on the hood of AMGs like we used to. No, now it's the AMG logo, and that's pretty cool. I love the blue paint on this thing. I love a lot about the looks of this thing. I think it's gonna be so much fun to drive. At least it looks like it will be. And on paper, it sounds like it will be as well. So let's find out. So, stepping into the Mercedes-AMG GLC 63S Performance 4MATIC. You're greeted with all sorts of kind of performance spec stuff. I've got the carbon fiber package in here, which gives me this big swath of carbon fiber in front of the front passenger, a little bit in front of the driver, but not really anywhere else in here. Nothing on the center console, nothing on the steering wheel. This is a kind of a mix of like a suede plus like a leather. I've also got some kind of billeted aluminum in here, which I rather like on some of the door controls, on the door pulls, on the button release for the center storage bin cover. All of that has got the nice build, but again, not a lot of it here. I think the way this is designed, this cockpit is designed with very big swaths of panels, and you've got the big 11.9-inch display in front of it. Also, there isn't that many places to add trim. You know what I mean? Like, it's just very kind of blown out in here, so that's why maybe I'm not seeing as much of those like kind of extra materials. But anyway, so you got the carbon fiber in here. You've got the ambient lighting, which even in daylight, which I'm technically in daylight now, but with this rain, it's kind of quasi daylight. You can see the color or the lighting coming from behind the vents here, from behind the door controls as well, or the door and seat controls, I should say here, which is nice to have. A lot of times you don't see ambient lighting in the light, but you can see it here, and of course, it's adjustable to any number of colors. Burmester audio, which is really good. Wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto is standard. No special Google stuff though, no Google built in. If you want to use Google Maps, Google Assistant, and so on, you have to use your CarPlay, I guess, for that, or your Android Auto. They don't have it built in here. What I do have, however, because I have the Pinnacle package, which costs like $3,400, but adds stuff like a heads-up display, which you can modify along with the gauges here. There's like 7 different gauge styles and HUD styles that you can use. It also gives you augmented reality navigation, I think only if you use the native navigation system, not if you're using Google Maps on CarPlay. So what that does is it gives you arrows, a camera will pop up on your screen here, a forward-facing camera, as you arrive at your next instruction. It'll tell you to turn right here, and a road sign will appear. And really the only way to miss your turn is if you literally drive through a sign. So that's kind of cool. So I've got that in here as well. So there is a good amount of tech, and there's some extra tech, some fun stuff as well in the Easter egg department, which is called track pace. Now on your center gauge cluster here, you can activate the track pace gauges, which gives you like a G meter, and you can modify it to show you other performance aspects, things like that. But it also gives you, and this is really cool, kind of a database of tracks all over the world. The Nürburgring Nordschleife, the Sebring, Laguna Seca, Road Atlanta, Monza, all that kind of stuff, and you can time yourself on those tracks. You ever happen to find yourself on Monza in your compact crossover, then you can time yourself, which is cool. And if you don't have your track on here, I think they'll be adding more as over-the-air updates, or you can do kind of like a breadcrumb thing where you start your lap on your favorite track, hit record, and it will record the track for you, and then it'll load it into the database. You can even do it, I think, on non-tracks on your favorite stretch of road or whatever. You can do it there too. So that's some pretty neato stuff. That's really cool in the Easter egg department. Is it useful? Not really. All it's useful for is kind of put a smile on your face and to show you that you're driving something a little extra special. It's not the roomiest front cabin, not even by compact crossover standards, but I don't mind that for a performance vehicle. I like having all my controls nice and close at hand. I like having as much leverage as possible on the steering wheel and all that kind of stuff. That's nice, but for those who aren't into something as performance committed, there might be a little bit too much snugness. I have the slightly flatter seats. There's an even higher end performance seat option, which gives you even taller side bolsters that are adjustable and all that kind of stuff. I don't have that here. These are a little, I think, more comfortable than those ones, having not actually tried those myself. I have tried them in other Mercedes-AMG products, and these that I'm in here are a softer seat overall. I like how they've got the seat controls on the door here. That's a Mercedes staple that has since been echoed by a few other manufacturers. Genesis comes to mind most immediately, and there's a couple others as well. I think even BMW, the arch nemesis of Mercedes, is doing it on some of their cars now as well. So that's up here, so it means you don't have to like jam your hand between the side of the seat and the rocker panel in order to adjust your seats. I appreciate that. I've only got heated seats, so I don't have cooled seats, which is kind of weird. This is a $135,000 car. As tested, starts like 110 grand. To not have ventilated front seats is a little bit strange. 2 USB-C ports here, wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. And of course that great Burmester audio, awesome speaker grills, very high quality sound. I really like what Mercedes does with Burmester. There's some nice tweeters on top of the door here that bounces the sound off the glass, which, by the way, in this particular car, this glass has been treated to be more kind of noise reducing. That's another option you can get, and so I've got that on here, so it's a little quieter. And you know, it's a nice cockpit, lots of high quality materials. Like I said, I'd like a few more trim pieces here, the contrasting trim pieces like that billeted aluminum, like that carbon fiber, but otherwise the materials are good and it's well featured. There's also a full-length sunroof here, like a panoramic sunroof, but I've only got it open halfways right now because for the life of me, I can't figure out how to open this thing without constantly having to slide my finger back and moving it in these tiny little increments. Like, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. Tell me in the comments if you know what I'm doing wrong. I'm an idiot. I've been called much worse, so go ahead, say what you want, do your worst, but I don't think so. I think there's something gone haywire here, and that's a little weird, especially considering this is a $135,000 car, so that's a strange one. Heads-up display as well, which you can modify to match what's going on with the rest of the cockpit, or you can have your heads-up display look different than what's here. You can have your main gauges show your full navigation screen map, for example, and you can have the heads-up display in turn show your speed, which is kind of cool. I do like the central display. You can control this display with the steering wheel buttons. The right-hand side buttons control this display. The left-hand side buttons control your gauge cluster. That's kind of cool. Or you can do it via touch, as is tradition. Nice to have a couple of options. So yeah, it's a pretty committed cockpit. But a lot of that stuff you can get on non-AMG 63 GLC models, the GLC 43, the 350e, and so on. What gives this its real AMG-ness? Well, for starters, the guy who built this thing, or the girl, I haven't actually looked at the name yet, has signed a plaque on the engine cover. That is one man or one woman, one engine thing. AMG's done it for a while. That's what makes this a pure AMG, if you want to call it that. 671 horsepower and 752 pound-feet of torque, making it, I think, the most powerful four-cylinder engine that's ever been sold at retail. If it's not the most powerful, it's definitely one of, and it's most definitely the most powerful one Mercedes has ever done. But wait a minute, I hear you asking. Didn't the GLC 63 used to have a V8? Yeah, it did. It used to have a twin-turbo V8. That is no longer the case for now. If we go by the C63, which is, of course, the compact sedan, that, I believe, has been somewhat officially, unofficially reported as getting a V8 again. It used to have this powertrain. That's where it debuted. but they're thinking of putting a V8 back in there. The reason why, not the only reason, but one of the big reasons why they went to a 4-cylinder hybrid or plug-in hybrid, it is a plug-in hybrid, by the way, but don't get crazy. Don't think this is like your typical PHEV, like your Kia Sportage, for example. You're not gonna get 50 kilometers of range, of EV range from this. You get like 10, if you're lucky, of range from this. It regens quickly as you drive. It uses the engine, uses the brake regen, all that kind of stuff. It regens quickly, but it's not really the typical PHEV in that sense. It's never gonna kind of double as an EV if you can plug it in every night. It just isn't. It has a very small battery. It's more of a hybrid than a PHEV. If we're honest, the EV motor is there for the power, and that brings us back to why 4-cylinder instead of 8. Well, they had to be compliant. The European emission standards, fuel economy, are stricter than it is here, so they need to find a way to become compliant. If Mercedes wants to make these high-performance cars, make them legal, they gotta do stuff like this. So they've given it the 4-cylinder with the EV motor. Do I miss the V8? Yeah, as any, kind of true-blooded car person, I love the sound of an old V8, I love the power, the linear power delivery, and all that kind of stuff. So I do miss that, but they've given this some baffling to kind of make it sound like more than it is. That's the way of the world these days in the car world. A lot of time they're trying to subconsciously make cars sound like bigger engines than they are. So there's that. Now if I go to this, there, it sounds a little angrier in certain modes. There's some exhaust overrun as well, so that's kind of cool. So you can make it sound louder, but I do miss the V8, but there is a lot of power with this 4-cylinder turbo. But of course, I'm just tooling around the city now, no need for super high performance, but what I do appreciate, I do have the Mercedes-AMG Active Ride Control on this. That's a $4,600 option. That changes damper settings depending on the conditions under the wheels. So when you're driving around town, you want a little softer, you can do that. When you want to make it a little firmer, you can do that. Although unlike BMW, you can't do 2 sets of presets. There's an individual mode, but that's only one. BMW M cars, like the X3M, for example, there's an M1 and an M2. You could set different parameters to those 2 settings. Here, there's only the one individual. But around town's not bad. I've got 21-inch wheels on here. It's the biggest wheels you can get. Standard wheels are 20 inches. And I've got winter tires, which have slightly softer sidewalls than your typical performance summer tire. So I'm gonna get a softer ride as a result out of this. And the ride is not too bad. There's oftentimes I've driven AMG products, no matter how I've set them, they just feel too firm. Usually, admittedly, that's when they have sport tires on, performance tires that are much harder, stiffer sidewalls, not as much absorption. People forget that the tire does play a part along with the suspension in the ride quality of a car. It's kind of an extra bit of suspension in there with the soft rubber. But with these winter tires, it's a little softer around town. Visibility is pretty good. It's a pretty high ceiling, actually. I got good headroom. I'm not bumping the wheelman hat on the headliner here, and that leads to more comfort and better visibility as well, and I do appreciate that. No digital rearview mirror though. I still haven't seen a Mercedes-Benz with a digital rearview mirror. I'd like one of those, especially in a smaller vehicle like this. In addition to all that power, there's also a launch control mode. It's called Race Start here, but same idea. You scroll one of the drive wheels, the left-hand side control wheel down to the icon that looks like a racetrack, more like a drag strip. Press that. Activate race pace in the gauge cluster here. You see a little Christmas tree on your heads-up display. Throttle, brake off, and you're out. Woo! Now that is a proper race start. That is. Woo! And this is where we're gonna see what this, top spec, performance-wise really, GLC is all about. Steering's got some nice weight to it. Not a lot of feel, but I do like how it weighs up. I've got it in sport mode now. That makes it louder, which you might be able to hear there as well. And the steering is very direct. You might not have the feel, but it's quite direct. Very responsive front end that has you feel like you're driving a smaller vehicle than even a compact crossover. More C-Class like in that way, and I appreciate that. But physics are good at physics, because I always like to say the center of gravity in this vehicle is not as low as it is in a C-Class, for example. There's a bit of body roll through these turns, but those adaptive dampers I have, those are helping neutralize that a little bit. You can choose manual mode here, and now you're going through the 9-speed automatic transmission. It's not a dual clutch. Just Listen to that, really quick response, a little bit of popping there on the shift. I like that. Really quick response from the transmission. It's come up on my heads-up display here what gear I'm in. I love that. That's, to me, the best use of a heads-up display, in my opinion, especially in a performance car, right in your line of sight so you know where you're at. Especially when you got a 9-speed auto. That's a lot of ratios to keep track of. So it's nice through here. It is fast. Now, I'm not in ideal conditions. It's not super dry out here. I'm not going as hard as I might on a drier day, but even with half throttle or even less than that, you still get the feel for the inertia that you get. You've got that powerful turbocharged 4-cylinder motor, plus you've got the boost of the EV motor that really helps give you that first oomph on tip-in, helps reduce lag in between shifts, and helps neutralize turbo lag a little bit as well. It's essentially an electronic supercharger, and I'm totally cool with that. It's a good use of that tech, and again, that is what that tech is here for. It is not really here to give you more EV cruising. That tech is here to give you power and response from the powertrain, power and immediate access to that power. That's what that is about, and it's doing the job very well through here. Now, again, to get the full feel, I prefer to be on a drier road with non-winter tires, more performance tires, stickier rubber. That'll give you a more true feel, but even the way it is now, I can still tell what I've got under my foot here. The one thing that I'm really having the biggest issue with, though, is the brake feel. There's very little travel in that pedal, and it's really hard to determine. I mean, I talk about steering feel, but it's really hard to determine where the brake is starting to bite. It's a carbon fiber braking system, which is powerful but needs to get heated up. Very good stopping power, but kind of hard to determine when that stopping power has really come in. And I didn't just notice that here, or I'm not just noticing that here on like a twisty road. I noticed in the city too. To brake smoothly is a challenge to really gauge that brake feel. Otherwise, though, everything that needs to feel like a performance vehicle, with again exception a little bit more steering feel would be nice, is there in this GLC 63, and it is very quick through here, very quick indeed, and putting a bit of a smile on my face. There we go, fun stuff. But it does beg the question, though, do you really, now that the V8's gone and the specialness associated with that is gone, do you really need to go all the way to the 63? Now, you never need to go all the way to the top of any car's given performance line, but I feel like here with that 4-cylinder and EV powertrain, or hybrid powertrain, it just feels a little more, not just less, doesn't just feel less special, it just feels a little more pedestrian than it used to. I feel like, you can find a 4-cylinder hybrid powertrain, even with a turbocharger, in a huge array of vehicles, all the way down to a Kia Sportage hybrid, for example, and on up from there. Nothing wrong with that car, but it just kind of brings cars like this expensive Mercedes a little closer to something more kind of everyday, like a Kia. And I just, eventually we're gonna have to deal with that. Cars are going hybrid, they're going EV, that's just the way it is. But you do really see a car like this, when you lose that old school V8 power, or even like a big 6-cylinder power like what the Macan has, it just takes away a bit of that specialness, takes away a little bit of the event. It's a great car, but I think I'd have, especially in this condition, just as much fun in the GLC 43 for less money and more trunk space, because the hybrid system takes up trunk space as well. It doesn't have a fully flat floor there. As a result, I had to put the battery somewhere. So the gap has narrowed between the top spec 63 version of this car down through the 43 and onto the GLC 350E after that. It just has. But there's definitely something to be said for the novelty of the power this thing makes, and the fact that on numerous occasions during my drive of this car, I've had people give me high fives and compliment me on this vehicle, whether it was in the supermarket or the gas station or whatever. People seem to love it. And if you want performance above all else, well, this will give you that. It is a pretty cool thing, not to mention the tech required to extract that much power out of a 4-cylinder hybrid engine. That's pretty cool. Anyway, thank you for tuning into this quick look at the, wait for it, 2026 Mercedes-AMG GLC 63 SE Performance 4MATIC. nailed it. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please do. If not, no hard feelings, of course. And if you have already subscribed, thank you so much for doing so. That means so much to me. You can follow me on Instagram at Dan the Wheelman, on Blue Sky at Dan the Wheelman. Of course, keep it locked to the Dan the Wheelman YouTube channel. Always fun new stuff going up here, there, and everywhere. So thanks again for tuning in, folks. Hope you enjoyed the video. This is Dan the Wheelman signing off from the most powerful 4-cylinder engine I've ever driven.